Hello and welcome to Power Rankings. I'm your host Jessica Kinney and I give you the rundown on how the power shifts from week to week on Game of Thrones. This week's episode was named Hardhome and it refers to the ruined free folk settlement north of the Wall, and it's where we first see the White Walkers appear this season, but we'll get back to them in a second. My shout out this week goes to Arya Stark. We finally get to see her implementing her training in Braavos and she meets the gambler. Even though the other girl in the House of Black and White doesn't think that Arya is ready, I think that Arya was born for this destiny and is going to kick ass as one of the Faceless men. Someone else who kicked ass this episode is my first honorable mention, Tormund Giantsbane. He stood up for Jon when one of the Then warriors, Laboda, questioned why Tormund would ever fight next to a crow, and then he proceeded to prove himself a worthy fighter when the White Walkers show up, so boom, Tormund. My final honorable mention just proved himself worthy to Daenerys, Tyrion Lannister. Even though he came to her as a prisoner, he was able to convince the Mother of Dragons to take his advice while on her pursuit of the Iron Throne. Though his family name is getting weaker and weaker, with him by Daenerys' side, he could potentially rebuild the respect the Lannisters once had. If they ever had it. A family who will never get my respect is number 5 this week, the Boltons. They know Stannis and Winter are coming, and Ramsay says instead of them waiting for it, that he takes 20 of his best men and goes meet Stannis on the battlefield. If Stannis' army loses to the Boltons, they will be flayed living for sure. Number 4 would probably welcome being flayed living at this point, Sansa Stark. She is basically being held captive by her husband Ramsay, but at least her family name still has power. Also, she's now one of the only people in all of Westeros that knows that her brothers Bran and Rickon are still alive. She recently found out as well that her half-brother and number 3 this week, Jon Snow, was made Lord Commander at Castle Black. Jon just went north of the Wall to try and convince the free folk to come back with him and Tormund and defeat the White Walkers. They were definitely divided in their want to fight next to the Crows, but as the storm came into Hardhome, they had no choice. Winter is definitely still coming because they just got a glimpse of the Night's King and his army of the undead, which just gained quite a few new members. Someone who just got a new member to her entourage is number 2, Daenerys Targaryen. Even though she hasn't forgiven him, Jorah is back in Meereen and trying to win her love again. Tyrion also has presented himself as an advisor, and she's decided to take him up on the offer. She is once again in pursuit of the Iron Throne, thank goodness, and if she can control her dragons and keep the love of the people, then she might just achieve it. And that brings us to one of the only groups that has no interest in the Iron Throne, and number 1 this week, the White Walkers. We finally see the vastness of their army and their power and quickness in which they can convert the living into their undead army. The Night's King and Commander looks pretty intense, but at least they have a few weaknesses that we're aware of, and we just found one more in Valyrian Steel, so thank you, Longclaw. You couldn't save Jorah Mormont, but thank goodness you saved Jon Snow. Well, that's all for this week. Thanks again for watching, and don't forget to check back next week to see who's got the power. For more Behind the Throne Power Rankings, subscribe to thestream.tv.